For years, Catholics have been told that the debate surrounding the Society of Saint Pius X was primarily a canonical problem, a problem of obedience, a problem of jurisdiction, a problem of regularization. The assumption behind every discussion was simple. The Church had already settled the doctrinal questions. The only thing left was finding the right canonical formula. Then, a bishop in full communion with Rome published a document that challenges that assumption from its foundation. And he did it less than a month before the episcopal consecrations planned for July 1st, 2026, in Econ. Not anonymously, not through leaks, not through rumors, but under his own name. Archbishop Athanasius Schneider. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this document is already being described by many traditional Catholics as the most significant defense of the SSPX written by a bishop in recent years. You'll understand why it arrives at a decisive moment, and you'll understand why what happened in Rome only days earlier makes Schneider's intervention impossible to ignore. Let's begin with the facts. On June 5th, 2026, Archbishop Athanasius Schneider published a lengthy document entitled "The Core Question Regarding the SSPX." The text appeared through journalist Diane Montagna and was quickly republished across traditional Catholic media. The title itself is revealing. Schneider argues that most discussions about the Society of Saint Pius X begin with the wrong question. The debate usually focuses on canonical status. The debate usually focuses on regularization. The debate usually focuses on disciplinary questions. According to Schneider, that approach misses the central issue entirely. Because before discussing canon law, one must first determine what exactly is being disputed. And Schneider's answer is direct. The real disagreement concerns Vatican II. More specifically, it concerns the authority that should be attributed to certain teachings of Vatican II. This distinction is absolutely essential, because Schneider is not claiming that Vatican II should be rejected. He is not claiming that Vatican II should be ignored. He is not claiming that Vatican II has no authority. His argument is narrower and far more precise. He argues that Vatican II was not entirely dogmatic in nature, and therefore not every statement contained within it possesses the same level of doctrinal authority. To support this argument, Schneider does something very important. He does not begin with Archbishop Lefebvre. He does not begin with the SSPX. He does not begin with traditionalist writers. He begins with Pope Paul VI himself. On January 12, 1966, shortly after the conclusion of the Council, Paul VI addressed the question directly. The Council, he explained, had avoided proclaiming dogmas endowed with the note of infallibility through extraordinary definitions. That statement exists. It is documented. It is public. And Schneider places it at the center of his argument. Why? Because it changes the entire framework of the debate. If Vatican II intentionally refrained from issuing new, infallible dogmatic definitions, then discussions about certain pastoral formulations become possible without automatically implying rejection of Catholic dogma. This is Schneider's central point, and it is a point that many traditional Catholics have been making for decades. But hearing it from a bishop in full communion with Rome carries a different weight. Let's pause for a moment, because the timing of this document matters. On July 1st, 2026, the Society of Saint Pius X plans to consecrate 4 bishops in Econ, Switzerland. Rome has already warned that such consecrations could incur severe canonical penalties. Cardinal Fernandez has publicly reiterated the Vatican's position. The date is approaching rapidly. The pressure is increasing. And now, Schneider enters the discussion with a document that effectively argues the dispute has been misunderstood from the beginning. According to him, the SSPX is not accused of denying Catholic dogma. The SSPX is not accused of rejecting the Trinity. The SSPX is not accused of denying the real presence. The The SSPX is not accused of abandoning the sacraments. The controversy revolves largely around interpretations of conciliar texts, whose doctrinal status remains distinct from formally defined dogma. This distinction leads Schneider to identify what he calls a profound inconsistency. On one side, he observes movements within the Church promoting positions that openly challenge traditional moral teaching. Questions regarding sexuality, questions regarding blessings, questions regarding marriage, questions regarding ecclesiastical authority. These developments often receive lengthy dialogue, lengthy consultation, lengthy patience. On the other side stands the SSPX, a society that celebrates the traditional Mass, maintains traditional sacramental practice, teaches traditional doctrine, and yet faces repeated warnings of canonical sanctions. Schneider does not hide the contradiction he sees, nor does he soften his language. Instead, he asks a simple question: why is patience extended in one direction and penalties threatened in another? This is the question at the heart of his document, and it is a question that many Catholics inside and outside traditional circles are increasingly asking. There is another element in Schneider's argument that deserves attention. He turns to canon law. Specifically, he examines the legislation concerning episcopal consecrations without a pontifical mandate. Most Catholics hear the word excommunication and immediately associate it with schism. But Schneider points out an important technical distinction. The relevant canon concerning unauthorized episcopal consecrations appears among offenses relating to the sacraments. It is not classified under the canons dealing directly with schism. For most Catholics, this may sound like a minor legal detail. For canon lawyers, it is anything but minor. In canon law, classifications matter, definitions matter, categories matter, and Schneider argues that these distinctions should not be ignored when evaluating the events of 1988 or the events anticipated for 2026. The significance of this argument becomes clearer when one considers the historical context. In 1988, Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre consecrated 4 bishops without papal approval. The Vatican declared the act schismatic. The consequences shaped traditional Catholicism for decades. Then, in 2009, Pope Benedict XVI lifted the excommunications. Not because all disagreements had disappeared, not because every question had been resolved, but because Benedict believed dialogue remained possible. Many traditional Catholics never forgot that decision, nor have they forgotten Benedict's observation that the crisis within the Church itself had not disappeared. Schneider's document stands squarely within that historical memory. He is effectively asking whether repeating the approach of 1988 will produce a different result in 2026. And his answer appears clear. He does not believe it will. The most striking part of the document arrives near its conclusion. Schneider makes a direct appeal to Leo XIV, not a general suggestion, not a theoretical possibility, a direct request. He urges the Pope to grant an exceptional apostolic mandate, allowing the episcopal consecrations planned for July 1st. In practical terms, Schneider proposes a path that would avoid confrontation altogether, a path that would preserve unity, a path that would prevent a new crisis, a path that would allow both sides to step back from the edge. Whether such a proposal has any realistic chance remains unknown, but the fact that a bishop has now placed it on the table publicly is significant, because once such a proposal exists, silence becomes more difficult. And that brings us to Rome. 3 days before Schneider's document appeared, another event took place. An event that may ultimately prove just as important. Because while Schneider was preparing his most detailed defense of the SSPX, the Vatican was preparing something else entirely. And what Rome chose to discuss, and what Rome chose not to discuss, may reveal more than any official statement. What happened next changes the entire picture, and it raises questions that many Catholics are finding increasingly difficult to ignore. What do you think? If you appreciate this work and want to support independent coverage of faith, tradition, and the Church, consider supporting the channel. And if you like the video, comment Amen. God bless you. 3 days before Archbishop Schneider published his document, the Vatican sent a very different message. On June 3, 2026, Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, Dean of the College of Cardinals, distributed the preparatory letter for the extraordinary consistory scheduled for June 26th and 27th. This is not an ordinary meeting. An extraordinary consistory gathers cardinals from around the world. It is one of the most important consultative instruments available to a pope. The agenda, therefore, matters enormously. Every topic included has been selected deliberately. Every topic excluded has also been excluded deliberately. The cardinals were informed that 4 principal themes would dominate the discussions: the international situation and ongoing armed conflicts, the encyclical Magnifica Humanitas, artificial intelligence, and the reception of the Synod. The list immediately attracted attention, not because of what was present, but because of what was absent. No discussion of the traditional Mass, no discussion of Traditionis Custodes, no discussion of the Society of Saint Pius X, no discussion of the approaching episcopal consecrations in Icon. Nothing. The silence is striking because of the calendar. The consistory opens only days before July 1st, the very date on which the SSPX intends to consecrate 4 bishops, a date that the Vatican itself has already described as potentially creating a grave canonical situation, a date that has generated months of international discussion, a date that has prompted public interventions from bishops, theologians, priests, and faithful throughout the Catholic world. Yet when all the cardinals gather together, the subject does not appear. Let's pause for a moment, because this is the point where Schneider's document and the Vatican's agenda suddenly intersect. Schneider is effectively saying that the SSPX question concerns one of the most important unresolved theological disputes of the post-conciliar era. Rome responds by convening the cardinals of the world and discussing almost everything except that dispute. One side says the issue is urgent. The other behaves as if it is not urgent enough even to place on the agenda. This contrast is impossible to miss, and it raises a question. What exactly is the Vatican's strategy? There are only a few possibilities. The first is that Rome believes the issue is already settled. No further discussion is necessary. The SSPX has been warned. The position has been stated. The matter is closed. But if that is the case, why does Schneider's document matter so much? Because Schneider is not an outsider. He is not a sedevacantist. He is not a member of the SSPX. He is a bishop in full communion with Rome. A bishop who is effectively saying that the matter is not settled, that serious theological and canonical questions remain unresolved, that a different path remains possible. The second possibility is that Rome hopes to avoid escalation through silence. Avoid the subject publicly, avoid provoking further controversy, avoid creating expectations. Allow events to unfold. If so, the strategy carries risks, because silence itself communicates. Every institution communicates through what it says. It also communicates through what it refuses to say. And when a major crisis approaches, silence often becomes a message stronger than words. History repeatedly demonstrates this. Before great ecclesiastical conflicts become visible, they often pass through a phase of institutional silence. Everyone knows the problem exists. Everyone knows it is approaching. Yet no one addresses it directly. Then suddenly events overtake the silence, and decisions that could have been made calmly must instead be made under pressure. Many traditional Catholics fear precisely this scenario, not because they desire conflict, but because they believe the opportunity for reconciliation is shrinking. Every day that passes reduces the available options. Every day that passes moves the calendar closer to July 1st. Every day that passes makes compromise more difficult. Schneider understands this. That is why his document reads less like an academic study and more like a final appeal. The most remarkable sentence may be the simplest. He warns that excluding the Society of Saint Pius X completely from the life of the Church would be a tragedy. Not an inconvenience, not a misunderstanding, a tragedy. And then comes the most important part. He adds that responsibility for such an outcome would fall primarily upon the Holy See. Those words carry extraordinary weight, because Schneider is not defending everything the SSPX has ever done. He is not denying Rome's authority. He is not rejecting the papacy. Instead, he is warning Rome that authority carries responsibility. The stronger party always carries the greater responsibility for preserving unity. This principle runs throughout church history. The great saints repeatedly appealed to popes and bishops using exactly this logic. Authority exists not merely to command. Authority exists to preserve communion. Authority exists to heal divisions. Authority exists to protect souls. And according to Schneider, this is the moment when that responsibility must be exercised. There is another dimension that should not be overlooked. The Vatican's current silence occurs while support for the SSPX continues to grow in unexpected places. Not necessarily support for every SSPX position, not necessarily support for the consecrations themselves, but support for dialogue, support for patience, support for avoiding another rupture. We have seen bishops express concern. We have seen priests express concern. We have seen theologians express concern. We have seen ordinary faithful write letters and petitions. The concern is no longer limited to traditionalist circles. The issue has become broader. The question is no longer whether people agree with the SSPX. The question is whether another confrontation solves anything. And on that question, increasing numbers of Catholics appear uncertain. The memory of 1988 remains powerful. At the time, many believed the society would disappear. It did not disappear. It expanded. Its seminaries grew, its schools grew, its chapels multiplied, its influence spread across continents. History therefore complicates the present discussion. If severe penalties failed to resolve the situation in 1988, why would the same strategy succeed now? Schneider never states the question in exactly those terms, but the implication is obvious. Past experience deserves consideration. History should be a teacher. And history suggests that disciplinary measures alone rarely solve doctrinal crises. This is why his document may prove more important than many initially realize. It does not merely defend the SSPX, it challenges the entire framework through which the SSPX has been discussed. It asks whether the wrong questions have been asked for decades. It asks whether Vatican II itself has been misunderstood. It asks whether canonical penalties are being applied consistently. It asks whether unity is being pursued effectively. And above all, it asks whether there is still time to choose another path. The answer remains unknown. Leo XIV has not responded publicly. The Vatican has not commented directly on Schneider's proposal. The consistory agenda remains unchanged. The countdown continues. The official website for the consecrations remains active. Preparations continue in Econ. The bishops designated for consecration remain in place. Nothing suggests postponement. Nothing suggests cancellation. Everything points toward July 1st. And that reality is what gives Schneider's intervention its urgency. 26 days before the consecrations, a bishop in communion with Rome has effectively placed a proposal before the Pope. Grant the mandate. Avoid the crisis. Preserve unity. The proposal now exists. The appeal has been made. The warning has been issued. The question that remains is whether anyone in authority will answer it. Because if July 1st arrives without a response, the silence itself will become part of the story. And future historians may look back on these final weeks and ask a simple question. When the opportunity still existed to avoid another rupture, who chose to speak? And who chose to remain silent? What do you think? If you appreciate this work and want to help support independent content about faith, tradition, and the Church, consider supporting the channel. And if you like the video, comment Amen. God bless you.